my goal is by the end of this year, I'll finally hit that $1 million mark. So it's going to be a big, I got to figure out how to celebrate, but it's going to be where I am.
How would you like to own your home outright? What would it feel like to never make a mortgage payment ever again? On our mortgage-free segment today, we're going to interview Chris Luger from Minnesota. Recently, Chris became mortgage-free in just about 3 years. Today, we're going to learn how he accomplished this family financial goal so quickly and what he's doing with his money now. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Glad to have you, man. I know we met in person a few years ago. I'm glad we could do this online and bring your story to life. So I like to start the show, this segment, with the mortgage-free 3. These are 3 quick, short answers that help people understand this mortgage-free path that you went on. So the first question is, what was your starting mortgage principal balance?
Yeah, I really was paying down $162,000.
Got it. $162,000. Okay. And how long did it take you to pay off? I know I mentioned in the intro around 3 years, but what was it specifically?
Yeah. So, so around 3 years, it took me to pay about $45,000 of it.
Got it.
But then I cheated a little bit because the remainder I used, I sold my father's home after he had passed and used that for the remainder. So
got it. Well, I'm sure Dad thought that was probably a good use of money and a good way to honor his legacy.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay. So what's your home value today then?
$468,000.
Wow. Okay. So yeah. $468,000. That is, you own $468,000 outright. That is incredible. That's an incredible amount of money.
It is. It's great. Every time you kind of think about it, it's cool.
Wow.
It brings a little smile to your face. It does.
Oh, it's cool. It brings a smile to my face. I think I'm a mortgage-free fan. I don't know, but maybe. What? So talk to us about that. I know you said that your dad, you sold the home after your dad's passing. Was this a reason that you wanted to become mortgage-free? Did this move you towards that? I guess, why did you want to become mortgage-free? We'll start with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, growing up, really having no debt was always the plan, even growing up with my dad. My dad, he paid off his home as well. And it was, he didn't want to have any debt. I remember in middle school, him telling me, hey, I made a double house payment today. I made a triple house payment today. We get tax refund, and he would throw it at the debt. And so, growing up, he always told me that renting is throwing away money. I don't necessarily agree with that today, but I still like the freedom it brings you with not having a mortgage payment.
I think that's great. So outside of honoring your dad and then having that freedom, what were you hoping that a mortgage-free life could bring for you at this point in your life?
Yeah, it really is the freedom. It's the freedom to be able to, if something catastrophic were to happen, I could still live here, right? I mean, that's really the big thing, right? It really has allowed me to then do so many other things without having that huge monthly payment. I mean, yeah. I was able to crush my auto loan. I paid off my truck in like a year. And then I was able to just stack an emergency fund in a short period of time. I had 6 months of living expenses just stacked up, right? But then also it allowed me to do fun things. Like I went on my very first cruise in 2019 and it was cash flowed, right? It was paid. It just made it so much more enjoyable, right? I didn't have to come back to a credit card bill.
That's incredible. So yeah, it just freed up so much extra cash in your life that it allowed you to do not only important things to protect yourself like an emergency, but also allow you to do some more fun things. Yeah. And I understand you have kids as well. Have they been a part of any of these adventures as well?
Oh man, it's it's funny. They're older now, but they used to come in and see, I have a whiteboard in my office, and they used to see how I was tracking and paying on the debt. And I was explaining to them, but it's really hard to teach delayed gratification to a teenager. So they knew what I was doing and they know what I've done, but I don't know if they quite get it yet.
Well, maybe it'll sink in just like it did for you with your dad, where he remembered that that very important milestone for him.
Yeah.
I understand you went through a divorce during this process. How did that affect the mortgage payoff process? And I guess,
Yeah.
did you guys own the home together and then you got it? How did that all work?
Exactly. And that's really what kickstarted everything. So it all started in 2002. We bought the house for 240. We then paid down to like 162, and then that's when we got divorced. And so we were accelerating the payment even like while we were married for 15 years. And I was doing things like our mortgage, our lender at the time had something called the Equity Accelerator Program. So I could make payments every 2 weeks, and that equated another payment at the end of the year, and it lowered your interest. And then we threw again any extra income, tax refunds and that type of thing. So yeah, at that, you know, 2015, I got divorced. The remaining balance on the house that I stayed in was 162, and that's where I kind of was like, oh, like let's take care of this. And yeah, it wasn't easy at all all the time, but there was definitely some motivation there.
Yeah, following the divorce, there's lots of emotions obviously that go through divorce,
Yeah.
and talking with people who've been divorced or friends of mine. Do you think that your path towards mortgage freedom was something, I guess, that made you feel some sense of pride during a difficult moment in your life as well?
Yeah, and I think really where it was. I mean, I knew I wanted to be mortgage free, but I was up until that point. If you use like the Dave Ramsey terminology, I was normal, right? Um, but really, what happened was, and again, to make this kind of a short story, when my wife left, um, she had always paid the bills. She always handled every bill, all the money, and up until that point, I had never even balanced a checkbook. Like I never did anything. So I had to learn quickly on how to do everything. Like I remember Googling like what is a budget, how to budget. I remember I had to quickly refinance the house at the time because now I had one income to pay the mortgage. And that's when I started. Again, I found you. I found Paula Pant. I found all of the OG bloggers, right? Um, and then what I did was I started reading all these books, and then it started like light bulb was clicking. Like, oh, if you're intentional with your money, this is how you do it. And that's when the game changed. So I think again, I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for the divorce. I mean, as sad as that sounds, but again, we co-parented well. We get along. It's okay. But
Well, that's good. That is good, and I love your perspective on that. That sometimes tough things in the past can make for a brighter future, even though they were tough at the time. And yeah, I agree with you. So, I mean, you've got a $468,000 home that's paid for. How has mortgage freedom outside of the asset that is your home accelerated your net worth growth? How has that helped?
yeah, it also allowed me to in 2017 again because now I had again some extra cash flow, right? In 2017, I bought my first rental property. Because again, in my education, I really started to realize, broadly, if you're looking at like investment books, there's always a chapter on real estate. And then I was like, okay, everyone seems to be talking about real estate. Maybe I should look into that. So then I found Bigger Pockets, and I mean all of the real estate stuff, and I just consumed so much knowledge. I read so many books. Again, starting with Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Millionaire Mind by Harv Eker, and that like, oh wow, like it really helped me understand money can be used a different way. And so, yeah, it helped me buy my first rental property in 2017. And now I just closed on my 10th property.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
incredible, man. You have 10 properties. That's great. So
I
this
do.
is that a big part of your income now? How does that all work?
I don't even count it yet. I don't.
Ha!
I'm, again, so any of the cash flow, it's funny, people say, again, I don't really advertise that. This is the first time people are going to hear that, oh, I got 10 properties. But yeah,
Sure.
so, because, some people, if they don't understand money and don't understand the business, they're always like jokingly, "Oh, you're a slumlord," and I'm like, "No, I provide quality housing to people that need it at a fair rate." I mean, they're well maintained. I mean, this I take it seriously, right? And
Absolutely. If you're telling me that correctly, 2017, you get there, you pay off the mortgage, you start to invest in rental properties. This mortgage freedom helped you to accelerate your rental property path. Is that right?
100%. Yeah. So basically all of the cash flow, any positive cash flow I get from my rental properties, it's immediately going to the debt, right? And so I'm actually using, if you want to coin a Dave Ramseyism, the snowball method, right, for my properties. So I have all of my rental properties lined up, the lowest mortgage. I'm just jamming on it. So my first property is almost 100% paid off.
Wow.
And then, now I'll have that much more cash flow to jam on the next one. But again, in determining my net worth, um, I don't I don't really count my real estate right now. That's going to be gravy on top. I was going to say that, I mean, that's like the one really big thing is once I had the mortgage paid off, it allowed me to then do things I had never done before, maxing out my retirement accounts. Like that was something you had never, I remember reading or like hearing somebody on social media being able to max it, oh, I just maxed out my Roth IRA or whatever. And I'm like, how in the world do they do that? How, like at the time it was just way out there. Right. But yeah, so now it allows me to basically what I do. So I still, again, right now I still have a W-2 job. Um, I really feel as though the term FIRE, and again, those of you that may know, right, the FIRE movement to reach financial independence and retire early. Mine really is to reach financial independence with the option to retire early. I am not in a hurry. I like my day job. I like my W-2 job, right? But it allows me to do things like take advantage of those, tax advantaged, 401k. So I'm maxing out that. I max out my 401k, max out my HSA. I also, I'm fortunate enough to be able to do an after-tax 401k contribution. I put in like an extra 30 grand and then convert that to Roth every year. And so basically that's kind of my retirement. And my goal is by the end of this year, I'll finally hit that $1 million mark. So
wow,
it's going to be
that's
a big,
incredible, man.
I got to figure out how to celebrate, but that's going to be, it's going to be
wow. Well, you've done an excellent, I mean, good gosh. I mean, for somebody who said that you had to Google what is a budget, just to whatever,
100%.
5-7 years ago, to
Yep.
be almost at $1 million by next year. That is quite the transition. I mean, call it in less than 10 years, right, man? Is that less than 10 years?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I started my path really I count it like 2017. That's when I got serious about it. So I did like probably a good year and a half of just education, like reading books, podcasts. Again, I started blogging my journey back in 2016. I went to FinCon not knowing anything. And I realized, oh my gosh, but God, the connections you make there, it's just such a great community. Oh my gosh.
I completely agree. I love FinCon. It is. It's been revolutionary for me. I have the opportunity to host this year, and you and I are going to hang out again, like we did last time in 2019.
That's great.
So I have a question for you. Somebody's listening right now. Maybe they're into real estate, or they're just getting started, and they're saying, with lower, even the interest rates, they're going a little higher right now. With low interest rates, why would you pay off any mortgage whatsoever when you could, make more money, stack it on top, get some more rentals, more rentals, more rentals? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I will tell them that because I've actually got in some pretty heated arguments. There's a few family members that know what I've done. And yeah, I hear about how that was the stupidest decision I could ever do,
Yeah.
But one thing I would tell people is that I know the math doesn't really make sense, right? Because that's the debate, right? I mean, I could put all that money in the market and earn a better return than my 3.5% rate on my mortgage. But it really is psychological. It's so freeing. It changes the way you think. It changes the way you behave. It changes the way you care for your home. It truly does change the way you get up every morning. And it's until you experience it, it's really hard to explain to somebody. But it also then, I think that once you have that freedom to, not only pursue other goals, but also give back more. I mean, one of my favorite things to do now is like, I can be out to eat or whatever. And, I go up to the counter to pay my bill at a diner and I'm just like, give me their bill too. Just pay it. I mean, it's like, what's it cost me? Like $30?
I love
And
that.
it's like, I just made their day. They're going to have the best day because when they get up to pay, oh no, it's already taken care of. I remember one of the first times I did it at a local restaurant here, they're like the server was really confused. And then it was like, well, do you want me to tell them? And I'm like, no, just give me their bill. Don't worry about it. And, but that's what the freedom allows you to do, is just to give back in just the tiniest way, So
I love that. You know what? More money and more options and more time freedom just amplifies who you are. So that's just a testament of the kind of person you are, Chris, that when you get more in your life, you want to be able to give back. So I am very honored to speak to you today, because that's the kind of world that I want to live in. Chris, thank you very much for showing us that example. Somebody's listening and they also want to become mortgage free and they're just getting started. Maybe they're searching what's a budget online. What's one step that they should take following this interview to become mortgage free?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me was because I really wasn't budgeting and I didn't really know exactly how to budget. But what helped me, the very first step, was tracking your spending. That's the biggest thing, because I started tracking my spending. Again, at first it was literally a notepad and a pencil. Then I went to like a spreadsheet. That was before I even knew that Mint was a thing, right? Or personal capital. It was before I even knew that. I started tracking my spending, and then you start to realize all of the mindless spending you're wasting money on. My biggest thing was eating out. Oh my gosh. Every day at lunch, it was like I remember tracking it for like 3 months, and all I saw was like Subway, Taco Bell, Subway, Wendy's. Like but it added up to hundreds of dollars. And so once you track your spending and see where you can like truly, let's stop that mindless spending. Well, now pretty soon you have an extra $500 to throw at your mortgage. So the very first step, just tracking your spending, is the number one thing.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, for people who are listening right now and they're thinking, oh man, I'm in my, call it whatever, 40s or mid 40s, and I haven't really paid attention to my money at all. Look at Chris's example today, everybody. He is a fantastic example that it's not too late. You got an opportunity when you're in your 30s and 40s. Maybe you're making more money. You could just stack a bunch of it towards your goals. So, Chris, I understand you're helping people with this in a good way on your blog. Tell people where they can connect with you and learn more about what you've done here.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Andy. So you can reach all of my social and my YouTube channel by going to my blog at heavymetal.money. And I got some great posts on there about strategies on paying off your mortgage, to just what it's like navigating finances while going through divorce. Because there's a lot of anxiety that can happen. And I kind of went through some of that as well. So I encourage people to check it out. And I'm pretty active on Twitter. You can find me there. Again, I encourage anyone to reach out. I'm happy to engage.
Yeah, talk about rocking your finances. Chris is the right guy for you guys, everybody. Absolutely. Chris, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.